Now, I'd like to introduce to you now Ben Gilroy. Ben is from Direct Democracy Ireland and a recent candidate in the by-election in the East Meath, or the Meath East area. So I'd ask Ben to come up. So please give Ben a warm welcome.
Thanks, folks, for that welcome. It's a terrible thing that we have to go and protest from north to south of the country, and we have attended so many of these protests, and they grow in number the whole time. Thanks, I'm a little bit taller. They grow in numbers from length and breadth of the country, and yet while they serve a purpose, they're not really getting anything done quick enough. We have a group called People for Economic Justice, where we try to prevent people being taken out of their businesses and out of their homes by corrupt banks. But we realise that this has to be changed politically. And while we can put pressure on our government, they're not listening and they don't care. And that is the message. And while I see, parents with special needs children and the old and everybody else looking for their slice of the cake, unfortunately they've given the cake away. And they were able to do it during the night. They just signed over during the night to unelected, corrupt gamblers on a stock exchange and bankers. And unless that's addressed, we are going nowhere, and there is no cake left for anybody. Now, people say to me, well, if we didn't bail out the banks, there would be no money in the ATMs. This is the greatest load of nonsense that I've ever heard, and it's a real lack of understanding. What they're trying to tell us is that the banks have lent us the money to bail out the banks, and then they have the audacity to charge interest on it. That's what they want the Irish people to believe. Now, because of the by-election, Labour have been destroyed in that area. And it is a good barometer for the country because it's an urban and country area. It's a good mix. And I believe that it's a good barometer for the rest of the country. And Labour should be destroyed for the false promises they made. And also a lot of other of the political groups. The Irish electorate are fed up of that. They're fed up of the lies, deceit. They're fed up about putting the people's needs second. Like David Norris put it well when he said they put the people's interests second to a system that is corrupt and criminal. And I believe he's correct. I did have notes. I tend to wander, so I'll stick to them now and I won't bore you, even though it is a beautiful day. The beautiful weather, by the way, has been brought to you on behalf of Direct Democracy Ireland. It's one of the changes we intend to bring. So to say that Ireland is in a state of crisis is probably one of the biggest understatements you can make at this time. But what is the real cause of our crisis? Is it Fianna Fáil, the Greens, the banks, the developers, the bondholders, or is it Fine Gael, the Labour Party, maybe a few independents from North Tipperary and South Kerry? Well, it's my contention that all of the above are to blame. But we also have to take some of the blame. Unfortunately, a lot of the blame does lie with us. We have accepted this, and unfortunately now we are so down in the dogmire that poverty has come knocking on all our doors, and now we have to take some sort of blame for this. We have allowed the revolving door of Tweedledum, Tweedledee politics in this country, and we keep voting for the lesser of two evils. But the problem with that is you still end up with evil. So collectively we have been at the blame game now for 5 years. Political parties, as we know, have destroyed the political process, and they have usurped the political power to rape this great country of ours for their own personal gain and the gain of the vested interest groups. The established political parties have not served this country well, and they are an abomination on Irish society. Now, pundits say we may be just a protest party. I don't believe that for 1 minute. On Vincent Browne, a barrister, put it well when he said, that if all the groups can come together, and there's many of us from north and south of the country, if we can come together in some coherent voice politically, we can rock the establishment. We have already rocked Labour. They're jumping like rats from the ship now. You know, the MEP there from Labour resigned the other day, saying she couldn't stand by a party that hurts its people. Did she not know that the month before we were in the election, and did she just come out with that after we hit Labour quite hard? I believe we bring solutions, and I just want to talk about one of the solutions today, because I believe this is very, very important. And I don't know if you remember in school that they used to say Ireland was 32,000 square feet, or square miles, sorry. However, the real map of Ireland is much bigger. In actual fact, it is 10 times bigger than Ireland. The vast region is recognised in international law as belonging to the Irish state. It amounts to approximately 25% of the continental shelf, and this is known as Ireland's exclusive economic zone. A Department of the Marine study, which is available from their website, outlines in graphic details vast resources of oil and gas reserves that are available for exploration within these areas. Conservative estimates say we could be sitting on more oil and gas than Kuwait and Iraq put together. Now I ask you, please, do not allow this turn into one of these gone-bean Irish deals that were done that the Irish public will not see a red cent out of. Because, you know, we could be one of the wealthiest states in the world if this is handled correctly. Now, some deals have already been done that Minister Ray Burke was involved in, so I don't assume we'll see too much benefit out of them. But Direct Democracy Ireland wants to legally challenge any of the contracts were done for these assets, because I believe even just handling this one asset correctly can take care of many of the ills within the country. Norway is the richest country on the planet right now, and the reason for that is their oil. Have a look up on YouTube, just a video, just type in Google oil in Norway. They go around the country and they ask just ordinary people, how are you so wealthy? And they say, it's the oil, it's the oil. Watch halfway through and somebody says to them, do you know that Ireland gave away their oil? And they just cannot believe we have done this. So we need to legally challenge these contracts, because the way I see it is the government are merely the trustee of the assets and the people are the beneficiaries. Unfortunately, I, like many of you, don't feel like much of a beneficiary in this state. The reason I say this is a very important issue, and I really want you to understand this, is that in 2014, as a consequence of the Lisbon Treaty, qualified majority voting comes into effect in the EU. The EU, in effect, could impose a tax or other encumbrances on our exclusive economic zone, rendering its value useless to Ireland. As well as the existing multinational companies that are drilling and developing the existing known fields, there are only handsome tax breaks and capital write-offs. Now, the problem with this is deals for the oil should be done simply like this. If 100 barrels come out of the ground, the state gets 25 of them. You don't work with tax breaks because they can write so much tax off that Ireland would virtually see none. And you don't work on a profit share because they can diddle the books and pay themselves such fees that there would be no profits. I implore you to look at BBC, a documentary with O'Reilly Jr. on it, and he talks about how, he was questioned about how Ireland is not getting any benefits. And the write-offs that they're able to claim for the last 32 years of exploration means we'll actually see nothing of this. In one of the fields alone in Cork that they're drilling right now, there's a conservative estimate of the gas, just the gas on one field sitting above the oil, is 6.5 trillion cubic feet of oil. That's why the Troika and everybody else wants to sell our sovereignty down the river and not have us have a say in politics here in this country. Because the world want what we have. and they have threatened us by saying that they won't give us any of their Mickey Mouse paper money that's not backed by anything, not worth anything, for the ATM machines. So we must not fall into that false threat of them. Finally, I would like to ask why Fianna Fáil, the Greens, Fine Gael and the Labour Party all urged us to accept the Lisbon Treaty, knowing that in doing so our exclusive economic zone was at risk. I want to ask them, when the people rejected the Lisbon Treaty, why they all conspired to cosmetically change small issues and still not deal with the substantive ones, again recommended a flawed treaty to the people. Finally, I would like to ask them, in whose real interest are they working for? Because if they are agreeing with multinationals to rape our exclusive economic zone and others to steal our mineral deposits, they sure are not acting on behalf of the Irish people. We need to challenge the Lisbon Treaty again and regain our sovereignty so we can protect our vital interests and assets that will cure many of the ills of this country and for decades to come, instead of passing debts on to our unborn. We've had enough of marching, enough of gobbledygook, enough of pseudo-banter and comedy between political parties playing at a system that is outdated, archaic and no longer serves the common good. It props up unsustainable politics, playing games with people's lives and livelihoods. Direct democracy was in our first constitution and was removed. It was the right of referendum. We would have had the right to call a referendum today on the issue of paying back gamblers on a stock exchange. I don't have to ask you how you would vote from that. I know what would have happened, and it leads to better governance. If you take the night of the bailout, I don't believe there would have been a referendum called, because I don't believe a referendum or a bailout would have been suggested. Politics is a game of being popular, and they would never want to bring a bailout and have it overturned by the Irish people within 3 days. So it leads to good governance. As I say, it was in your first constitution. You don't have to trust direct democracy or the Irish people. Trust your forefathers who were used to oppressive ways. Finally, I would just like to say, direct democracy, it needs to be returned to the people, because as of now, what the people are getting is actually a mask of democracy. Over the past number of years, many new groups and individuals have stood up, looked for and presented new democratic solutions for Ireland. While all these groups differ slightly, we should forget about the differences and concentrate on what we agree on. If we can't agree on substantive issues while Ireland is going down the toilet at a rapid rate, we are in trouble. So it's only a matter of getting together and becoming a strong voice. We need to get her in one coherent group. And as direct democracy was left by your forefathers in your constitution, I would ask you to trust them and join us. And just on a note to that, can I say there's a meeting to set up a Drogheda branch of direct democracy in the West Court Hotel Tuesday the 30th of April at 8 p.m. Thanks very much.